Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Ali and here I just talk to myself about books, and then someone, maybe you, may or may not watch this at a later date. Today I'm going to be doing, since we are smack bang in the middle of June, the mid-year freakout tag. The mid-year book freakout tag. So let's get started. So I won't lie, I don't actually know where this tag, like book tag, originates from. I've tried to find out like who the original person who did it was, and I can't. So I don't know whether just my Googling skills aren't doing me any favours, but I have based these questions off of Meg with Books' latest video, which I will link down below if you want to see that as well. And yeah, I'm just kind of going to utilise the same questions to go through my mid-year review of all the books I've read kind of so far this year or wish to read. So far this year I think I've read about 64 books, which is pretty good. I never set myself like too much of an unrealistic reading goal, because I know that if I get in a reading slump I could literally go like 1 or 2 months without reading anything, or like literally reading a book or like a manga. So I am always a bit cautious with that. I do tend to increase it by like 5 books every year, so at the moment my goal was 60, so I've already kind of reached that. But I think deep inside I'd like to get over 100 books again. But my main goal, to be honest, is to read better quality books than I did last year. So for like my star ratings or just my thoughts about those books to be an improvement on last year's. That said, we're kind of in the middle of the year now. I've read a bunch of books already, and it would be fun to kind of go through those and just see which ones I liked, which ones I didn't like, and you know, which ones surprised me or didn't. So the first question on the book tag is the best books you've read so far this year. So I've decided to do one fiction, one non-fiction. So first of all, for my fiction pick, my favourite book so far this year has been Shark Heart by Emily Habeck. This is really interesting. It's not anything like anything I've read before. This is a, what would you even call it, like a contemporary magical realism kind of vibe, or speculative fiction. I don't really know. I don't really know what genre this would fall into, but essentially what it does is it follows a couple who have recently gotten married, and the husband is unfortunately diagnosed with a progressive life-limiting condition where he will eventually turn into a shark. So I think it's meant to be kind of an allegory on, you know, things like cancer or mental health, or things like dementia, Alzheimer's, etc., that progressively get worse. The person that, you know, that person is kind of gets lost over time, etc., whether it be mentally or physically. And I just really liked the premise of how that is explored. So within this world, anytime someone gets that sort of illness, they turn into like a different animal. So we have the husband here who slowly turns into a shark, so begins to kind of lose abilities in terms of like being able to move his body, and also becomes kind of aggressive, needs to eat certain types of food, etc., needs to be in the water. We also have another character who slowly turns into like a Komodo dragon, and it's more about like the loss of memories, the loss of recognition of loved ones and things like that. So I absolutely loved this book. I thought it was just like fascinating how it explored everything. It's quite lyrical. The way it's even like set out, you have like some pages are literally just like very short excerpts, and I just thought it was brilliant. Like I cried. Obviously I cry at everything, but yeah, I cried at this book. I just thought it was beautiful, and the writing style just was something new to me that I just really enjoyed. I would definitely read something else by this author. I don't know if she has anything else out at the moment, but I might check out to see if she does have anything coming up, because yeah, this was very much my favourite read of the year so far in terms of fiction books. In terms of non-fiction, I have recently finished reading 7 Fallen Feathers by Tanya Talaga, who is a investigative journalist. I have said time and time again that I love investigative journalism type writing, and some of my favourite non-fiction books outside of like memoirs have been written by journalists in terms of like investigative journalism type stories. This one in particular focuses on 7 missing high school students from First Nations in Canada. They were travelling quite far to go to school because there were no schools on their reservation, or the schools that were there were like very poorly funded, didn't offer really much in terms of like prospects for the future, so their families thought it best to let them have an opportunity and go to this like really far away school where they would stay in like boarding houses or stay with like other families who would become almost like foster parents for them. And yeah, it follows these 7 students that went missing and were found passed away under either like suspicious or unexplained circumstances. And it talks a lot about kind of like institutional racism. It talks a lot about still the ongoing repercussions of residential schools in Canada, the ongoing kind of mistreatment of Indigenous and First Nations peoples within Canada as well, where it comes to either overt racism or even like government policies, like underfunding, mistreatment by the police, or kind of like perceived lack of care and actual lack of care. So a lot of these people that were missing, although they were reported missing, like investigations didn't go as fast as they could have done or should have done. Yeah, I thought it was just a brilliantly written book. I didn't really know anything about First Nations in Canada, to be honest. And after visiting Canada earlier this year, it's something I wanted to read more about because it's something that I saw mentioned quite a lot in like museums and stuff. And I visited an indie bookshop while I was in Ottawa and asked for some recommendation, and this was like the top choice by the booksellers. And I can see why. As I said, it does focus on those like 7 students in particular, but it utilizes their stories to like explain more about the general context around why the way that like things were handled were like not good. So yeah, I really enjoyed it in like a very non-enjoyable way, if that makes sense. Like, it's not a nice book to read. Like, it's not, you know, it hurt to read that. Like, there's a lot of injustice within that, but I'm glad I read it and I did enjoy it. It is definitely my favourite non-fiction of the year so far. Next we have best sequel you've read so far this year. So I couldn't choose. So at first, actually, I was gonna pick a prequel, but then it's not a sequel. Even if it was written after the original story, I don't think it counts. So I then could not choose between these 2 sequels. So we have A Sky Beyond the Storm by Saba Tahir, which is the final book in the Ember in the Ashes series quartet. And then we have Empire of the Damned by J. Christoph, which is the sequel to Empire of the Vampire. Very different books, very different vibes, but I loved both a lot. Ember in the Ashes is a YA fantasy series set in, I think it's meant to be like a Roman inspired world, but actually to me it felt more like Roman and like Middle East type inspired world. So we follow Leia, who is a daughter of rebels, and she has been living with her grandparents and with her brother as well. And then one day her brother is arrested on suspicion of being a rebel as well, and she decides to try and infiltrate the place of where he's being kept to try and kind of liberate him. She does have some magical powers which are, you know, to be kept secret. And then we also follow another character who I don't remember the name of right now, who is a like the top in like this military academy. He's like the son of a general, etc. However, he does harbour this secret where he really doesn't want to be part of that world. He doesn't want to be part of the empire of like these people that are oppressing like Leia's kind of group of people. So yeah, there's kind of like this intended enemies to lovers type vibe, but they're never really enemies per se. I thought the books themselves were great. Like, I waited so long to read the series and I don't know why, but I binged the entire series like back to back and I really, really loved it. I thought the world building was brilliant. I thought the magic system was really interesting. The character building as well was really good. Like, some of the characters that you end up hating, I'm not saying necessarily they're redeemed, but like, there's a lot of context that's given over time for you to understand how those characters have ended up in the way that they are. And probably one of the main villains of the story I really, really understand, and I really liked. So I thought this was like just the perfect ending to that series, and probably my favourite book out of all 4 of them. So yeah, very much liked this book. The other one, as I've said, is Empire of the Damned by J. Kristoff. I think I've spoken about Empire of the Vampire like a million times already, but it essentially follows this character called Gabriel de Leon. He has been captured by the vampires and is being interrogated essentially as to how he's kind of gotten where he was. Something's happened. So we kind of have him telling the tale of what's happened to date. So it's kind of like a retrospective telling, whereas this one we follow both him and his sister, and both of them are providing kind of input into what happened so far. So you kind of have a bit of a dual POV, which I really, really liked. These books just like destroy me because you fall in love with a character, something horrific happened, there's a lot of heartbreak, and yeah, I just don't trust J. Kristoff. But I absolutely love the world building. I absolutely love the character development. I love the like little snippets of kind of romance here and there. The dialogue's really funny. Just everything about these books is great. Like, I love them, and I'm very much looking forward to Empire of the Dawn, which is the final book that's coming out later this year. Okay, so next we have new releases you haven't read yet but want to. I mean, there are millions. Millions. So some honorable mentions are like The Devils, we have Gifted and Talented, This Monster of Mine. I still haven't read Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, which I really want to read. Cruel is the Light, Fable for the End of the World. There's just so many, but the one that I'm most wanting to read and pick up is The Night and the Moth. So this is written by Rachel Gillig, who is the author who wrote One Dark Window and Two Cursed Crowns. I have yet to read that duology, but I've heard very good things, and I feel like I would like it because it's kind of like borderline grimdark fantasy. This one I think is romantasy, and I've heard very good things. I keep seeing it everywhere. The hype is real. I have been taken in by the hype, and therefore I really want to read it. So this follows Sybil, who is a diviner. She is sent visions by these kind of like divine beings. Doesn't really want to be part of this, but that's what she is, and she can predict terrible things before they occur. So people from all around the country come and kind of see her to get these prophecies essentially. However, just as they are nearing so her and her diviner sisters are nearing the end of the service, a mysterious knight appears who is called Roderick, and he has no respect for Sybil, but also as he appears, all her sisters slowly start disappearing. So there's this whole kind of like mystery going on in the background, and they end up having to work together to kind of solve that. But also potentially he's like the prime suspect. Unknown. But yeah, this edition is the Fairy Loot edition and is absolutely stunning. Like, this guy looks like Timothée Chalamet, I think. And this one looks like that singer that I always forget the name of. That sings like really, like, I don't know, fairy like music, you know, in the woods. But yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to reading this, and I'm hoping to pick it up next month, or maybe this month if I do finish reading the books that I've already picked out to read. Okay, next we have most anticipated read for the second half of the year. I mean, I think I will not be alone in saying that quite obviously my absolutely most anticipated book of the second half of the year, coming out in August, is Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. R.F. Kuang is hands down one of my favourite authors ever. I have read everything she's published so far. So Catabasis, from my understanding, is kind of again, a bit of a dark academia tale, but a little different. So you've got two students who end up having to travel to hell to rescue their supervisor, and I think it's meant to be based on Dante's Inferno. So I did read the entire Divine Comedy, was it last year or the year before? I was a little bit underwhelmed by like Purgatory and Heaven, so those two bits, but Hell was definitely, so Inferno was definitely like my favourite, and I did really like that portion of the Divine Comedy. So I'm quite excited to read a book that is kind of somewhat based on that, or at least utilised it as a inspiration. And I just love R.F. Kuang's writing. Like there isn't a single book of hers that I haven't rated like at least 4.5, if not 5 stars. So I'm very, very much looking forward to the next one. And yeah, I keep looking up there because that's my little R.F. Kuang shelf that I don't think you can see. Yeah, up there. Here. But yeah. So very, very much looking forward to that book. Next we have my biggest disappointment of the year so far, and I don't even have this book anymore because I disliked it so much, and that was Zodiac Academy. So I read The Awakening, which is the first book in the Zodiac Academy, earlier this year. I had quite high hopes because I do like, you know, magic school type stuff. It was like a romantasy. Everyone was ranting and raving about it on BookTok, Bookstagram, BookTube, everywhere. So, you know, I was like, okay, let me try it. I was very glad to have only bought the first book instead of like doing my usual thing, which is buying the entire series prior to having read it. And yeah, it was definitely my biggest disappointment of the year so far. I felt like well, let me tell you a little bit what it's about. So it's about these two twin sisters who live in the human world. They end up like escaping their foster parent who has been awful to them, and they kind of break into his house, steal back their own money. Is that what happens in that book? Wait, I think I'm making this up. Yeah, so they discover that their parents actually come from the Fae, so they have Fae heritage. They also have very strong, unparalleled powers, and they end up going to this school to try and like harness those powers. Now, the premise itself sounded quite interesting. However, the two main characters were very, very annoying. The male love interests were all horrific. Like, I don't want any of them to end up with any of them. Like, they're all awful, borderline abusive. Turns out this is actually like a bully romance, and I wish I'd known that before because I would have known immediately that it's not for me. And yeah, it was just terrible. Like, there was no world building, minimal character development when it came to any side characters, but also any of the main characters. The plot itself just wasn't great, and the dialogue wasn't good. So for me, this was 100% the biggest disappointment of the year, and I will very much not be continuing on with the series. I know a lot of people like them out there, and you know, good for you, you do you. I wish I liked it too, but unfortunately, definitely not for me. Okay, and next one is what is the biggest surprise of the year so far. So I have a little trilogy here, and that is the Horus Heresy trilogy. This is written by 3 different authors. So we've got Horus Rising by Dan Abnett, we've got False Gods by Graham McNeil, and then we've got Galaxy in Flames by Ben Counter. So this is a Warhammer 30k fiction series, which is based on the Warhammer games, set 10,000 years prior to Warhammer 40k, which is like the popular gaming universe. And it follows essentially these things with these creatures, humans, called Primarchs, which have been like genetically engineered to be like really good in terms of like speed, size, strength, etc., like that. And one of them in particular, Horus, leads the Legion of the Lunar Wolves, and he becomes disillusioned with the Emperor whilst he is leading part of the army to perpetrate the Great Crusade, which is trying to essentially force humanity back under the rule of the Emperor, who is this godlike being who pretends he doesn't want to be a god, but he is. So this is by far like the biggest surprise I've ever gotten. I didn't think I would like this at all because it is Warhammer based. I'm never really played Warhammer, and it's not really been something that I would play. It's also very grimdark, and it was set in space, and I don't tend to like space set sci-fi books. If I do like a sci-fi book, it has to be like very well built in terms of like, yes, it can be a different planet, etc., but I need it to like be a really well built world. But this is actually fantasy set in space rather than sci-fi, so I ended up really loving it. It is grimdark, it is very violent, it's very graphic, it's very gory, but those are all things that worked in its favour. The characters are, again, all horrible. I don't think there's a single like good character in this story, but they're all really good. They're all like really interesting, they're all really well developed, they're really funny. Maybe not all of them, but some of them are funny. And yeah, this was by far the biggest surprise because I ended up loving it, and I think I will be continuing slowly but surely with some of the other books within this kind of like universe. And yeah, I won't tell my partner, but I suppose I should listen to him more often because I did really like this, and he did say I would, and he has been asking me for years to read it. So there we are. Next is favourite new author. So I never really know what this means, like whether it means like a debut author or whether it means new author to me. So for this particular book tag, I've opted for new author to me, and this year I read 2 books by Grady Hendrix, and he is definitely my new favourite author to me. Like, not a debut author by any means, but I've never read any of his books prior to this year, and now I'm obsessed. Like, I love them. So I read The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires and My Best Friend's Exorcism, and I just love the kind of like satirical take on those kind of like horror type stories. So we've got My Best Friend's Exorcism, which is very heavily based on like your standard kind of 80s type horror. I mean, you can even tell from the cover, but this is essentially about a girl's best friend becoming possessed by the devil, I believe, and it's just really good. I just really enjoyed it. It's very like angsty teen vibes, but also like the horror is good, and as I said, it's kind of like a satirical take on horror but still horror, which I really liked. And then The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires is about this like almost Stepford Wives kind of like environment or like town, and the wives like set up a book club, and then this the son of like this elder person that's recently passed away comes to the town, and when he arrives, like weird things start happening, and the main character that we follow suspects that there's more to him that meets the eye. And again, it's a very like satirical take on horror. But yeah, absolutely love his writing. I do have, as I've said already, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls to read next, and I really want to pick it up, but I don't know whether I need to save it for kind of like later in the year. But I will definitely be picking up some more of these books. I've also got Horror Store, which is like the IKEA Swedish like furniture store inspired horror novel where like the store is haunted, and the actual book itself looks really cool because it does look like an IKEA catalogue, and yeah, super excited to read that as well. Next we have newest favourite character. Again, this is like the newest character to me. I've recently read Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent, so I have already read The Serpent and the Wings of Night duology. I'm now waiting to read like some of the novellas and then the upcoming next duology, but in the meantime I was like, let me read the trilogy because I have heard really good things about the War of Lost Hearts series, and I also had these beautiful indie versions of the books, and I was like, it's time. So I would say that Tizana, who is the main character in this, and actually Max as well, who is the main male character, they're probably 2 of my favourite characters that I've read so far kind of recently. So Tizana has like been a slave for a long time. She was sold when she was a young child to lords whilst her mother was taken to the mines, and she has undoubtedly passed away because nobody survives the mines. Tizana is fractured.
5 hours later.
So anyway, there's these people who are born kind of like with very light skin, like silver eyes, white hair, etc., and they have like kind of intrinsic mind powers, and Tizana is partially born with that. So she has kind of the partial features. So she's got one grey eye, the other one is like amber. She has some black bits in her hair, but the rest of it is white. And she's also got some kind of almost like vitiligo type skin. So like the majority of it is white, but then she'll have like a patch, for example, across the amber eye that's like darker skin coloured. And she, as I said, has been a slave. She's kind of been through a horrific time, and she's been working really hard to pay off her debt to her slaver to try and buy her freedom. However, when she goes to get her freedom, things don't go to plan and she ends up having to escape. And she decides that the only way she's going to be safe is to try and find the Order, who is an organisation of magic wielders that is strong enough to destroy her previous masters, essentially. So she goes and tries and like seek refuge with them, but also wants to be able to kind of like learn more about the magic and try and like strengthen herself. She ends up having to become an apprentice to Max, who is a very grumpy ex-captain of the kind of Order's army and has a lot of very horrific history that he's hiding. So he has no interest in helping her, and he also has no interest in helping the Order because of what happened in the past. But their relationship is great. Their dialogue is great. In terms of like why I like Tazana as a character, is that she is very funny, she's very resilient, she is definitely someone that develops over the like book and over the story, and I just really like her as a character. So yeah. Books that made me cry is the next category, and I cry at everything. Like, I am such an easy crier. I will cry if I'm happy, sad, angry. I'll cry at the donkey commercials. I will cry at anything. And the book that did make me cry the most that I've read this year is hands down Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the latest book in the Hunger Games franchise, and it follows Haymitch. I have gone into more detail about my thoughts on this book in my previous video, which I will link, but essentially this is a prequel to Hunger Games and follows Haymitch, who is in Hunger Games the mentor for Katniss and Peeta, and you just find out more about the horrific things he's been through and why he is the way he is in Hunger Games. And the book was just so well written. Like, the character development was insane. He is, I mean, if he hadn't been a new character, like, he wasn't a new character to me, but if he had been, he would be the answer to the previous question, because he is very much one of my favourite characters ever. He's very, very damaged, and also there's just a lot that you learn about him and you understand him so much better given the context. But yeah, this book absolutely like destroyed me, made me cry so hard. When you think like there's a little ray of hope at the end, there just isn't. There is no hope. It's just relentless. It's just, yeah, I just cried a lot. I cried a lot, and it broke my heart, and my heart remains broken for Haymitch. Next we have a book that made you happy. I mean, loads of books have made me happy. Just reading any type of book makes me happy, but the most recent one I've read that I've just kind of been like, oh, okay, is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. Now, this is pretty much like a carbon copy of The Love Hypothesis with different characters, but pretty much similar storyline, similar type of tropes, similar type of characters in terms of how they, I don't know, act and stuff. However, I don't care. I really enjoy Ali Hazelwood's writing. I know that I'm going to enjoy it, and I know that it's going to be heartwarming, and I like that it's based in like STEM world, and yeah, this just made my heart a little warmer. And now I want to reread The Love Hypothesis, because that is hands down one of my favourite romance books, and I do tend to reread it like once a year. So maybe it's time for that. By the time it gets to kind of this time of year and it's summer and it's starting to get hotter, I just want to read kind of romancy, rom-com type books. And this is also a rom-com type book. So this follows B, who is like a neuroscientist who is offered the opportunity to work at NASA on a project that sounds super interesting, big with astronauts, etc. And her only kind of like question that she always asks herself is, what would Marie Curie do? And that's important for the story. However, when she decides to go for it, she then finds out that she will be co-leading this project with like her arch nemesis Levi Ward, who hated her at grad school for no apparent reason and just always made her feel really inadequate, etc. However, not all is what meets the eye, because does Levi Ward actually hate her? Who knows? We will find out. I mean, I feel like we know where this is going, as per any kind of like Ali Hazelwood's books, but I just really enjoyed it. Like, you kind of know what you're getting, especially with this one, because it is so similar to The Love Hypothesis, and you've got your like usual third act breakup scene, you know, all of that. The spice is cute. It's just, yeah, it was just heartwarming, made me happy. I loved it. I will continue to pick up Ali Hazelwood stuff. The only ones I haven't read so far are Not in Love, Problematic Summer Romance, and Bride. I don't know if I'm going to read Bride because of the whole knotting situation. I don't know if it's for me, but I'm open to hearing otherwise if people down below recommend it a lot. But I will definitely be reading Not in Love, which I've heard is not a rom-com. It's a more of a darker, kind of more serious take on her usual writing. And then the most recent release is Problematic Summer Romance, which I was going to pick up, however I've now found out is actually interconnected with Not in Love. And whilst you can read them individually, I do tend to find that they might have some spoilery bits from like the previous book of like the previous couples, so I'd rather read Not in Love first. But yeah, this book definitely made me happy, heartwarming, what can you say, just a cute little rom-com. Okay, and last but not least, the last question or category is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. Now, I really struggled because I have bought so many beautiful books. I would say though that the majority of them were books I didn't know what they would look like. I didn't know what they would be in the majority of cases because they came in subscription boxes. However, this one I did know what it was going to be, and I decided to there's two books that I'm going to go through, but the first one is part of the Broken Binding subscription box, and they do release what series they're going to be covering next. So this one I knew what it was going to be and also what it was going to look like, and I decided to go for it because it is absolutely stunning. So here we have The Magician by Raymond E. Feist, and it is just one of the most stunning books I own. It's so beautiful. It's also just like core epic fantasy vibes. So here we have a dragon and some little people. Here we've got kind of like some, again, elves. I think there's some dwarfs, some goblins, don't really know. And then here we have, again, a magician and some more like, I don't know, creatures that are in the army, some sort of elven army. So I'm super excited to read this. I've heard really, really good things. This is actually an old book from the 80s. It's part of a duology, but also part of a bigger series, and I'm very much looking forward to reading it. But yeah, this is definitely one of the most beautiful books I've bought so far this year. The other one is the sequel to The Swordcatcher, so The Rag Picker King by Cassandra Clare. Cassandra Clare has written a load of books, the majority of which are in kind of like the Shadowhunters universe, and I still have to read all of those, to be honest. But I did read them back in the day when they first came out. Don't really remember it. Need to start rereading it. I've reread one book so far, which is City of Bones, and I need to get on with it. But yes, I was obsessed with Swordcatcher, both in look and also in content, and I am such a sucker for like these type of edges that look like stained glass windows. The Swordcatcher ones are like yellows, oranges, reds, and these ones are blue, and they're just stunning. The front cover as well is stunning. This is the Illumicrate special edition, sorry. And the naked hardback is foiled with some anatomical drawings, which I love. So we've got a heart there, and we've got a heart on the back as well, and the spines just look stunning. We also have just some beautiful end paper art of two of the new characters we're going to be focusing on in this book. So yeah, again, this is one of my favourite books. Okay, so that was the end of my mid-year freak out book tag. I don't really know what to call it, it's a very long title, but I really enjoyed that. It's been really interesting to kind of see what I've read so far this year, what I've enjoyed, because obviously whilst I was preparing for this video I was looking back through all the books I've read so far, what my ratings were, what my reviews of them were, and it's just been really interesting. I don't know if any of you have like Fable or Storygraph, but I am on both of those. If you do want to follow me, I will put the links down below as well. Always looking for like extra recommendation and extra kind of like friends on those sorts of platforms to talk about books with. But yes, if you enjoyed this video, please do pop a like. If you would like to see more, please do subscribe, and see you soon.